Hello and welcome back to another devlog on Untitled Magic Life Sim and Puppeteer, my game's procedural animation system, which is also my undergrad comp sci capstone. I've got a lot of things to talk about this week, ranging from coding, art, math, and classes, so I figured it would be best to cover them all in one video. Along with the game field demo coming up, hopefully, in March, I've also got a mentor meeting this Friday to prepare for, so let's get started. I'm in a good spot right now with my classes, as I reserved the easier ones for my last semester. As today is a snow day, I can knock out my chores between my marketing and humanity assignments. I've also got some lectures for my organization of programming class to look over, which covers the theory behind building a programming language. I'm particularly interested, not for building a language, for now, but because this includes parsers and interpreters, which turns your text into functionality. While not everyone has seen their computer's terminal, I'm willing to bet people have seen Minecraft's console commands. As Untitled Magic Life Sim will be a long, multi-year term project, it'll be great to build a similar system at some point to speed up development. For now though, I'll keep this in the back of my mind. Along with code fixes and cleanup, I took some time to gather reference images today. Once all the components of Puppeteer have reached the good enough for an MVP state, I'll have to apply them to a small variety of creature types. For the school side of things, I've kept my final deliverables vague for flexibility, but I do need to make 3 types. One being the bipedal humanoid you play as, a giant quote-unquote centipede as a stress test, and something else. I'm considering a lobster/scorpion hybrid at the moment due to their arms, but if push comes to shove, I can fall back to isopods with their unique trait of moving around as a curled ball. Oh, what? They don't actually do that? They'll do that for my game. I also got distracted drawing some concept art on my tablet. You can tell the exact moment when my partner came over and asked to see my tablet to help out. She's a wonderful artist that understands and excels at anatomy, way more than I do. Just look at this armored frog guy that she took from my silhouette of... You can't even tell it's a frog, to be honest. It's going to be so much fun to model this character and animate him at some point. Overall, this was a nice start of a productive week, but for tomorrow, let's head back into Unity. I decided to start the day with some common procedural animation components that I'll use. My character's prototype controller has a basic squash and stretch deformer tied to the player's vertical velocity, but I would prefer if it was a bit more general purpose. After extracting out the logic, another component can now control the animation state through a -1-to-1 float value. There is an issue I have with this. While the original component's complexity was self-contained, this version now needs to be told what to do. In other words, other components need to be aware of our squash and stretcher, and over time this increases complexity and it's going to slow down development. In software design terms, this is known as coupling. Now, having other components set our value is definitely better than our squash and stretcher reaching out to other components for what to do. Both cases still contribute to the coupling problem, since they need to be somewhat aware of each other. Classic software engineering gets around this issue with things like dependency injection. I think, and this is going to come with a major asterisk, we can do better. I've been tinkering around with a system that I'm calling watchables. In this case, both components aren't aware of each other. Instead, the component reference is softly made in the inspector and fully made in play mode through some metaprogramming tricks. On the code side, both components are none the wiser. I'm still working on this video and explanation for this entire thing, especially since metaprogramming is very tricky to explain, as it's code treating other code as data to work with. I also need some more time to just iron out the kinks. But if you're interested in knowing more about this system, now's a great time to subscribe. I can talk about one trick though, and if you're making a game with Unity, specifically with code, chances are you've already used one of these. Attributes are a way to annotate your code so that other systems can behave and act differently on them. Mark a variable with header, you now get a title showing up above your variable. Mark a variable with range, you get a slider with clamps. Mark a private variable with serialized field, Unity now starts keeping track of that in the editor. I built a few more attributes today, like display as, which changes the label in the inspector, and read only, which disables the developer from modifying a variable in the inspector. The latter one I used for the float oscillator component. That way I can just glance at its current value and know that I don't have to bother with it. We'll use this component to drive our squash and stretcher. Anyways, I figured out that having more than 2 intense workdays in a row doesn't yield the best results. So I decided to take the rest of the day off just to relax. And I'm gonna need that energy because I've got to do the thing this week that I have most been dreading. And I'm not talking about my marketing classes exam, that went by smoothly. It was online, so I just rolled out of bed for it, and it was nice and easy. But anyways, another programming feature I've been dabbling around with is extension methods. I've always wondered why there's a bit of a friction whenever I switch from math mode and programming mode in my head, and I think it finally clicked as to why in my programming class, where we talked about 3 different types of notations: prefix, infix, and postfix. For example, let's say A is about B. Here it is in the familiar infix notation that we're all familiar with. But in code, we have about AB, where about is mathf.approximately. So you know what? Let's use extension methods to make things look more like infix. I mainly want the vector3 functions dot, scale, and cross, so it makes it a little bit easier to read the papers and presentations for constraining joint rotations. Eventually, we'll incorporate this constraint joint into our inverse kinematic solver and our pose-to-pose system and a lot of other components, so that our creatures, they aren't just dislocating themselves every time they move around. To recap, Quaternions are 4-dimensional unit spheres where x, y, and z are imaginary values, while w is a real value. It's nice to think about imaginary numbers as twisty numbers, as it feels more rotation-y. If we only worked with 3 axes, we'd hit an error state known as gimbal lock, where one axis aligns with another and we lose a degree of freedom, making rotations unpredictable. Now, the physical reason why 4 axes work is that we can swing a rotation to point at something. If we twist that direction, we are still pointing at the same thing. Thus, it's also a valid rotation. What we need to do is use a process called swing twist decomposition, and then apply that with our constraints. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to butcher the math terms to make this a little bit easier to understand. We need to break our 4D rotation quaternion into a 1D twist quaternion and a 3D swing quaternion by providing a direction axis. This will be the direction we start from, our rest position. For our 1D twist, we clamp it like an angle with a minimum and maximum. Nice and easy. For the 3D swing, we've got a bit more work to do. What we can do is project the direction we're looking at onto a 2D plane. Now that we're working in 2D, it's way easier to constrain. For now, I'm using a rectangle, but later I'll add in circles and ellipses. Now that everything is constrained, all we gotta do is reverse the entire process to rebuild the 4D quaternion and then apply that to our game object's rotation. And you know what? I'm calling it here. This took me hours of staring at papers and slides, not to mention all the prep time leading up to me doing this. The only time I saw a picture is from this 2016 Game Developers Conference talk. Thank you so very much. Honestly, this is a godsend that allowed me to figure out the constraint part, specifically the 3D to 2D part. I'm mostly sure that this thing is working, and I say mostly because manipulating the rotation in the editor can get glitchy. I'm coping so hard by telling myself the issue is just Unity applying the rotations in the editor while the joint tries to constrain itself in the game's update loop. Not gonna lie, I feel that if I brought this in as the only thing I worked on for the progress meeting, I think I would be good. So what I'm gonna do is I want to get some rest, wake up Friday, prepare a little slideshow of everything I've done, because there's no way I'll be able to explain anything with the rotation thing at the back of my mind. And you know what? I had the meeting. Instant thumbs up. I'm looking great. I'm gonna start making this video. If you enjoyed this video, here's that plug again to subscribe. I hope you guys have a nice rest of your day. I'll see you guys in the next one. I'm gonna go get some rest.